Hello, everybody. This is Megan.
Oh, we're starting? Hi, this is Alana.
Happy New Year and welcome
Happy New Year!
to Tea Time Crimes.
Yikes.
Another great intro.
I was caught unaware. You snuck that one on me in my COVID brain.
I don't know if I snuck it on you as much as I said, all right, we're recording now. But how are you feeling? Yes, you ended the
I'm
year
doing
with some
better.
COVID.
I'm past the worst of it for sure. So things are looking up. And I didn't lose my
Good.
taste this time, where last time I got COVID, I think 2 years ago before vaccines were out, the Delta variant, and I lost my taste and also the will to live because food is life.
I know there are some people who have that all the time as a
I'm so sorry.
condition. Oh, man.
I had to get really into textures, so I got
I was
really
gonna
into peanut
say,
M&Ms. Were fun.
I bet you textures. And also, I wonder if memory plays a part in it.
Oh,
You know,
that's nice.
you just remember what
Yeah.
lasagna tasted like, and so you like to eat it. I don't know.
Lasagna, what about Garfield?
I don't know. Just the first thing that popped into my head because
I
the
love it.
texture
Yeah,
and the warmth.
different
I don't know.
layers.
Yeah, the layers. Anyway, well, you know how I started the new year? My son screaming down the stairs, "Mommy, I just put Slappy away and his mouth moved." I said,
Oh, boy.
"Okay, well, his mouth moves on his own."
Oh, get rid of that thing.
So that intern is kicking it into the new year with
God.
a little bit of fear and terror. All right, do you want to kick us off with this tea review?
I also still have 2 feral cats in
What?
Chris's office.
I'm sorry. Wait a second. I'm sorry.
So I told Megan about it. Usually I like to surprise her with the animals that we have, but I thought they'd be gone by now because I was supposed to go on a trip and there'd be this whole thing, but then I got COVID, so we ended up not getting rid of them yet. So they're still in there. They're 2 little hissy, total feral kittens. They're adorable and they're like super tough.
They don't sound adorable.
I know, but they're little. They're harmless, but they still hiss, and so it's kind of cute. They'll like hiss while you're petting them, but they won't do anything about it.
They sound wonderful. Sign me up.
It's pitiful. Oh, you'd like them. They're cute and little. One's black and it's just like Iberia. And one looks like a cross between Tuzzy and Pepper.
So how long are you keeping these 2?
We need a plan.
You need a bigger network of folks who take on animals because somehow
I know.
How did you find these 2?
It's the trap at the gym that Chris goes to. And usually the cats that get caught in the trap, they release into the woodlands swamp area. But these are too little. They would have gotten scooped up by all the predators.
I think Chris just needs to go to a different gym is where I'm coming to.
He needs to open up his own rescue. He is such a heart.
Either that or he just needs to like put blinders on and go to a different gym. And
I know.
But obviously I would want the cat to be safe from a trap. But
I know.
It's abnormally high. I would like a statistician to take a look at what's going on in your world and just come back to me with, yes, this is unbelievable. And it's mathematically improbable.
They're just precious. I'll post a video of them hissing.
Okay. Well,
anyways, tea review. That's what we're doing.
It wouldn't be a new year without you just living your best life.
Yep.
All right. Tea review.
So this is actually a gift from one of my coworkers. Some holiday tea.
I'm jealous.
Warming joy. And I went with, it's like a variety pack. I'm not showing you.
I understand.
Because this is a listening
audio podcast. Took her almost 2 years to get that.
And there goes. Okay, this tea is raspberry ganache black tea. A fruit-forward blend with sweet chocolate and juicy raspberry.
Well, they almost had me till they said the J word.
The J word.
I loved chocolate and raspberry together. I don't know if I like it
it's
in
a
a
beautiful. How about
beverage.
orange and chocolate? Also a
I
great
like
pairing.
raspberry better, but yes,
Okay.
I'll give you that.
All right, I did put a little bit of milk because it's black tea, but just a
Obviously.
splash,
Yeah.
not a dollop.
Not a quart like I do.
Oh, you would love the smell of it. It smells just like a raspberry chocolate, like you'd get in one of those things.
A chocolate? She made
A
a circle with her
box.
fingers.
Like the
A
assorted
candy? Yeah.
the assorted box of
Yeah.
chocolates.
Of candy? Yeah. No, we're all with you.
Forrest Gump. Okay. Oh, it smells just like it. I wish you could have smell-o-vision.
Mm.
Oh. Okay. This is surprising because usually with fruit teas it's very sweet, but they captured the tartness of the raspberry
Tart.
as a
Yeah.
fruit. They actually captured that. So it like bursting up out of the like flow of chocolate and saying, "Look at me."
Honestly, it sounds a bit of a mess.
No, it's like a synchronized swimmer. Like imagine the raspberries as synchronized swimmer, and the pool is chocolate, and they're like coming up and doing their leg formations.
That's disgusting, but yeah.
I just smelled it.
Spit take.
Oh
Happy
my
New Year.
God. Wow, it's all over me.
I was just thinking you generally don't want chocolate-like substances in a pool, so I was struggling with that imagery. But I get it. Maybe a chocolate fountain, and then the raspberry swims up like an Olympic swimmer.
Well, now that it's half on my lap.
Yeah, how does it feel?
In my hair. We are jumping into this new year, folks. It's definitely a thumbs up. Let's see if my brain can come up with something. My brain just keeps going to velvety surprise, and that sounds weird.
Yeah, it absolutely does, but I would expect no less. Go for it.
It's a velvety surprise thumbs up. Oh,
disgusting.
Because it is. It's that chocolate velvet and then that little razzle dazzle, the raspberry. Good job.
Razzle dazzle.
Tea forte. Good job.
All right. Well, thank you, coworker.
Thank you, coworker. And now it's on my lap, so
it'll sit with you through the rest of the episode.
I can't believe that spit take. That was a good one.
All right. You are going to need to dust off your earmuffs.
Ugh.
I know. We're going back to the basics. Content warning. This involves children. So throwing it out there now. But I still wanted to cover the story. I kept coming back to it. I've seen it a bunch of times and put it off because of Alana. But I really wanted to cover it because I think it's important, not for the woman we're going to talk about, but for her victims. So in the summer of 1895, London was horrified by rumors of infants found dead in the River Thames. Authorities feared that the murders may be the cause of a baby farming operation and began searching within the city. So baby farming, if you're not familiar with the outdated term, came from an unregulated arrangement that allowed children, usually small infants, to be cared for by another person, usually a middle-aged woman, in exchange for a fee. So that could be monthly, weekly, a flat rate. And by the mid-1800s, this practice was thought to contribute to the high infanticide rates.
Didn't this come up in another episode where
We've talked about this
baby
before.
farming was happening?
Yeah, we talked about it in the O.C. Sneed episode where they thought maybe it was part of a baby farming. We've also touched on it about the scenario and the situation.
Okay. I mean, it makes sense with people we
in that time period. Yeah. So according to encyclopedia.com, mortality rates at orphanage were nearly as high as these baby farming operations. And there's also an incredibly high infant mortality rate.
Jeez.
Which makes it difficult to know what the cause is.
Okay.
At its best, this arrangement was supposed to be a situation where a child in need would either have a long-term adoption or be in foster care temporarily until their parents could get back on their feet and take them back. That was ideally.
But why is it called such a gross thing?
Because at its worst, it became human trafficking or murder for profit.
Like the kids would become assassins?
The caregivers would murder the children just for the flat fee. And
why?
Not return them to the parents, or they would sell the children out and they'd never be found.
I hope these people had very bad lives.
Yeah, we've touched on this issue before, but being pregnant and single in the 19th century is a tragedy unlike any other, apparently. It is one of the worst things that
Yeah.
can happen. People lose their absolute minds on this. There's social stigma attached, but it's also quite literally life or death for the mother. So I
Right.
want to set the scene a little bit before we get into this story. In 1834, a law was amended that completely absolved men of any legal or financial accountability if they were not married to the mother.
That's
Because
not how it works.
they didn't want men, they don't have paternity tests. This isn't Maury, right? So they didn't want men being falsely accused and their lives being ruined. Picture this. You're a woman, and I sound like Sophia from Golden Girls, but you're a woman in the 1800s. You have a relationship, you're not married, you get pregnant. The father does not have to take any responsibility, but this amendment says that you, as the mother, are in charge of this child until they're 16. You have to be. But they also cut services for poor, which is usually unwed pregnant women or single mothers, and good luck keeping or finding a job because you most often would be fired for being pregnant. And domestic servants would often become pregnant from the men in the house that they were working for.
Stop it. Stop.
And then they get fired. And the
I
father
hate
doesn't have to take
them.
responsibility.
I just hate it.
I'm sure some of these were consensual, but I'm sure some of them were not
Yeah.
as well. So,
Oh,
what
it
are your
makes me so
choices
mad.
if you find yourself in this situation? Abortion carries a life
Oh,
imprisonment
God.
sentence.
Of course
Also,
it does.
if you choose to take the risk of life in prison, you run the risk of dying because it's not being done in a surgical center, right?
Right.
Yeah. As a result of the situation that's being laid out, resources cut, fathers don't have to take responsibility, abortion leads to life in prison or death. They saw an increase in the rates of infanticide. So women would conceal their pregnancy and then they would abandon their child or murder their child. Not all women, some women, because infanticide is punishable by death, makes sense. But hiding your pregnancy is punishable by 2 years.
What?
Yeah, you can't even hide it.
It's none of your business.
I agreed. So the stats are tough to get right because, like I said, the infant mortality rate is unbelievable.
Is this in England?
Yeah, we are in England.
And
this is not the only place that it's happening.
I
but
can't
yeah.
remember in this time period if it's Catholicism or Protestant.
I mean, it doesn't matter
Baptism.
what religion you are. It's all
No,
over.
I'm just wondering like who's controlling the laws. Anyways.
An article in the Times in 1862 says 67 infants were victims of homicide, and another 150 were, quote, found dead. Because many women, like I said, would just abandon their child and then leave because they
I think
had to keep their jobs.
You have to starve to death or be murdered.
The Times states that 1,104 children under the age of 2 were reported as dead in 1861. And these are just the ones that are reported. Think about how many went unreported. 250 of those were ruled as suffocation, but they were not looked into to differentiate between a medical condition, an accident, or a murder. So a woman gives birth. There's no programs to help her. Adoption is not what we're knowing today. There's nothing going on like that. These women have the choice of supporting themselves and the baby as a sex worker or going to the workhouse, which means they will be separated from their child anyway, be put in brutal conditions, and most likely the child will die. This is why these baby farmers had clientele. You can see how this, if
so gross.
As advertised, this becomes a very attractive option. They will give their child up.
The good side of it.
Yeah, they will give their child up to find a loving home to a childless couple, or they will let this kind woman take care of their baby for, a year or so until they get married or they get more financially secure, one or the other. Because once they get married, then you could potentially get the baby, right? Now,
we're going to Georgia Tan situation. I feel it.
Exactly. There were some cases of wonderful women who took care of children.
I'm sure there are those few bright stars, but especially back then where it's just like people are so desperate, like you're going to get more of the worst kind of
Exactly what happened. So many of the nurses used fake names and would sell the baby as soon as they got it, giving the mother no chance to find the child again. Babies under 2 months old were wanted because they were so weak they could be left to waste away without any questions being asked.
That's disgusting.
Yeah, it's despicable. So that's what's going on. That's the backdrop of this story that allows for these, what we're about to talk about, to unravel,
Let's not time travel back then.
right? Authorities are searching to shut down the London baby farm that's murdering children, and they realize that they need to widen their search outside of the city because they think that whatever is happening is not actually happening in London, but happening upstream. The hunch is confirmed March of 1896 when Charles Humphreys moving along the river in Caversham, and he notices a brown parcel floating in the water. He pulls the package in, he unwraps the twine, he finds the foot of a small child, and he stops opening the package and goes directly to the police. So inside the parcel is the body of an 18-month-old. Go ahead and earmuff.
Done.
The baby girl has been weighted down with a brick, and the child has been strangled with a piece of white dressmaker's tape.
I'm back.
The coroner confirmed what the police had suspected cause of death was strangulation.
How could you do that?
They examined the wrappings for clues, and they were able to make out faded writing on the front of the parcel that had not been damaged by the water. It read, Mrs. Thomas of 26 Piggott's Road, Caversham, stamped with the date October 24th, and the words Midland Railway. So they know what station it went to. The Midland Railway stamps gave investigators a place to start looking. So Detective Constable Anderson goes there and asks the clerk, do you know a Mrs. Thomas? Do you know this address? And he says, I do know that address, but that woman who lives there is not named Mrs. Thomas. Her name is Amelia Dyer, and she has since moved.
Uh-oh.
He gives police the new address. Police canvass the neighborhood. They're hanging back. They don't want to spook anyone. And they learn that Mrs. Dyer is out of town. However, a neighbor can confirm that before she left, she mailed a package. And she knows this because she came over and asked to borrow twine.
Oh, God. What's happening?
So the police sit outside her home. And when she comes back, they set up a sting. They have a young woman go to the house posing as a single mother, wanting to make an arrangement. Dr. Angela Bryant is the author of the book Amelia Dyer and the Baby Farm Murders and is also a historian of Victorian police procedures.
Oh, cool.
So a lot of the information I got is from her book and her blog. Check her out. But she says that most likely this woman who was posing as an undercover agent was the wife of a police officer because women weren't allowed on the force. So they would, if they needed a female, they would often use wives of the officers, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
Amelia Dyer agrees to care for the child for a fee of £50, which is astronomical.
Yeah, it's quite a bit.
Yeah, it's a lot. They agree to meet in a few hours. The woman will bring the baby and the money. Transaction complete. Of course, when they go back in a few hours, instead of the woman and a child, it's the police, and they arrest Amelia Dyer. After her arrest, they continue to drag the river where the first child was discovered.
No.
To their absolute horror,
No.
they find two additional bodies, an infant male just a few weeks old and a boy estimated to be about 9 months. Both were wrapped in the same packages and had the same configuration as the first package, with the brick and the tape. The damage was so advanced that an official cause of death was hard to say. A few days later, a fourth package is found.
No more.
This one contains 2 children in the same way as the previous 3. They're estimated to have died only 10 days prior. There was a male child who was about 12 or 13 months, and a female who was 4 months. Cause of death is confirmed a strangulation, just like with the first child.
How do you do that to children?
I
feel like strangling is such a personal thing. How can you stomach that? That's crazy.
Yeah. These children also were well nourished and had been clearly taken care of before they were given to Amelia Dyer.
What?
Yeah. So what is happening here? Who is Amelia Dyer besides being evil? She was born on November 27th, 1837, 6th child born to Samuel and Sarah Hobley. And Amelia's parents weren't super wealthy, but they were probably more in the middle class because her father was a very skilled shoemaker. Okay. And that allowed her to get an education. She did lose 2 sisters to illness, one at age 6 and one at 5 months, and her mother passed away when she was just 11 in 1848.
So there's a lot of death going around her. Just
Right.
remembering our other stories where
Exactly,
people
but that's
turn.
also common for, I mean,
Yeah, you're right.
she has 5
It
other
was the
siblings.
1800s.
Yeah. By the time Amelia was an adult, she became a dressmaker, which I earmuffed you, but the tape found in the packages was dressmaker's tape.
Okay.
She married George Thomas at age 22, hence the Mrs. Thomas. That's also something we've seen with these women is they use not necessarily aliases, but previous names that they had or maiden names. So the package was addressed to Mrs. Thomas, which at one point was her.
Got it.
George was in his mid-50s, and the book I mentioned before by Dr. Angela Buckley says that they both lied about their age on the certificate. Amelia stated she was 30, and George stated he was 48, because really they were 22 and probably 56.
Oh.
Yeah.
But that was common too.
I know. And Amelia worked as a nurse after they were married, which was a little uncommon for her to work.
Okay.
George died in the fall of 1869, leaving Amelia alone with her daughter Ellen.
Oh God, Ellen, run.
Mm-hmm. Amelia switched from being a nurse to being an attendant at the Bristol Lunatic Asylum. We see this a lot, a common thread. These women are always in this kind of caregiver position.
Yep.
Who knows what happened in her professional life.
Exactly.
She remarried before Christmas in 1872 to William Dyer, thus becoming Amelia Dyer. And she's 35 at the time, but again, she lies about her age. She says she's 31, most likely because William is only 27.
Got it.
It seems during the second marriage, Amelia started fostering children for a fee. This is when it started.
Oh, boy.
In addition, she had 2 children with William, Mary Ann and William Jr.
Okay.
Now, in 1879, Amelia was first on the radar, subject to her first inquest regarding the treatment of children after multiple charges living in her home passed away.
Ugh.
The doctor reached out to the coroner once the second death was followed so quickly by the previous one that he'd just seen. And then when they looked into it, they realized that 4 children had recently passed away in Amelia's care.
Okay, arrest her. Boom,
Elizabeth
done.
Thomas, 6 weeks. Evelyn Townsend, 8 months. Alfred John Channing, and May Walters, 2 months.
They're just little.
No, most of these children were farmed out. That means that she took them in, Amelia. She made the arrangement, and then she subcontracted and sent them to other homes.
Yeah.
Now, when that would happen, it's possible that the women who took in the children had too many children and not enough resources and were trying to do their best, and these children just couldn't overcome poor nourishment and ill health. But it's also possible that these women didn't care and took in as many children as possible and
for
just
the money.
Waited.
How do you do that? Like, how does your heart? Like, I just don't.
Well, let me tell you how
It's
Amelia.
2%.
Amelia did it. She would take in several children at once. Then she'd administer Godfrey's cordial or mother's helper, which is
what?
laudanum.
Laudanum.
I know. I hear Claire saying it. Outlander reference. And very little nourishment. So children who were starved were rarely questioned because of the mortality rate and just the general conditions. When Amelia was first arrested at home, when they came for her for this first inquest, she immediately attempted to overdose herself on this same mother's helper.
What?
She was unsuccessful. Now, Ellen Thomas, if you remember, her child from her first marriage.
She's still alive?
Had been questioned about what was going on in the home. And Ellen had been in foster care herself.
What?
For a time while her mother was getting back on her feet, and she'd returned home and she was 16 and helping take care of these children. She said that her mother was kind to the children and that this was the routine of the day. Amelia would put an ad in the paper, advertise 5 shillings a week to care for a child. Their diet was corn flour, boiled bread, and condensed milk.
Yikes.
And then 5 drops of mother's helper each night. That'll knock them out.
That's a lot.
That's how she had so many children. She just drugged them all. Ellen stated that 7 children had died since 1878, as well as 2 of her brothers. So 9 children in total.
That's a lot.
That's very high. Now, even though these children who passed away were ill, May Walter, the 2-month-old, was starving, emaciated. But they had 0 signs of physical abuse, and the doctor could not prove beyond a doubt that they were starved over just being sick.
Oh, come on.
Well, you'll remember the Winchester story. Sarah Winchester's child essentially died of this same thing because she wasn't able to take in
and there's no
food.
tubes.
And there was no medical intervention that would help. And
Yeah.
obviously this is not what's happening here,
No.
probably. But you see why it's hard for him to say
Yeah, I get
one
it.
way or the other. Now, unable to press serious charges, authorities did send Amelia to jail for 6 months for violating the Infant Life Protection Act, but it was nothing. It was the best they could do, even though they had suspicions, but they couldn't prove it. This might not be a surprise, but Amelia's life is kind of chaos. She and her husband, William, become separated. No one knows what happens to Ellen after being at this inquest. Hopefully she got out and got away.
Oh my God.
Amelia moves around a lot to avoid suspicion. She's all over the place. In 1891, she finds herself wanted again for questioning. So in addition to this baby farming operation, she also would take in pregnant mothers and let them have the baby in secret. Then do something with the baby, adopt it or keep it, right? Now, Amelia had done this. She had hidden a governess who was pregnant by the son of the family she worked for.
Wow, what the fuck? That's fucked up.
Amelia said she would adopt the child, and the mother agreed because, she doesn't have a lot of options. But after the mother left, the father said he'd wanted to marry her, and he finally got his parents to agree. And the couple go back to Amelia's to get their baby.
Oh, no, don't say it.
The baby's gone, and Amelia said that she adopted the baby out to a woman she met at the train station.
Wow.
Yeah.
Talk about a background check.
Right? Yeah. Concerned, the couple go to the authorities. When the police arrive to question Amelia, she again attempts to self-harm, just like before, where she downed the laudanum. And this time, she tries to slit her throat 3 times.
Oh, my God, that's so violent.
She only sustains a small scratch, so I don't know how committed she was. But after she did this, they send her to the insane asylum.
Okay.
When she returns home to her daughter, Marianne's now old enough. She has her own house. Marianne's concerned enough that she calls the doctor. The doctor comes. Amelia attempted to attack him with a fire poker, yelling that the birds were telling her to do it.
Oh boy, she needs help.
He again admits her to the asylum. Well, does she need help? Or this episode happened right after the same couple came back. As soon as she was released, they came back. They're looking for their child.
Good for them.
Amelia's released in 1894, and guess who comes by yet again? Still looking for their child. This time, Amelia runs away and jumps into a brook.
How deep is it? Aren't brooks like creeks?
That's what I'm picturing. These attempts are not
full-hearted.
I mean, can we not see the pattern? This couple shows up at her door and she puts on whatever she's doing here. She stays in the hospital for a few weeks and she's returned again to her daughter. Each time she's released, she takes in more children to care for. The parents come back again. And Amelia is so agitated and nonsensical, she starts acting as if she can't form any coherent thoughts that they send her to the asylum again.
Uh-huh.
In 1895, she's released from the asylum, but she's in and out of workhouses. And here she meets 74-year-old Jane Smith, or Granny, as they called her.
Wow, like living that old.
I know, I'm shocked. Granny is apparently a ray of sunshine. Legit. She's very nice.
Oh, actually.
And she doesn't have issues with Amelia. And she agrees to help her care for the children because she loves children. One of Amelia's trademarks, as I mentioned, is moving around a lot. So she's using a lot of different names in a lot of different places. And this means that pieces and probabilities can only be stitched together in retrospect. For instance, there's a story that in one town Amelia was living in, she took a toddler out for a walk and then just returned home without him.
What?
The 2-year-old was found walking alone after Amelia had left town. Other inquiries were made when infant bodies were found in that same area, but Amelia was going by Miss Smith, and again, she was long gone. Because of this, no one can accurately estimate the number of children who died as a result of Amelia's actions, but today people estimate it could be in the hundreds. Yeah. Throughout all of this, Amelia seems to stay close to her daughter Marianne, living with her on and off, and her husband, Arthur Palmer. So when the discovery of Amelia's sins is found by investigators, they start looking into Marianne and Arthur as well.
Yeah.
Apparently, those two are also adopting their own children, not to the extent that Amelia is, but it gives them pause. They have witnesses who say that they treated a young girl about 4 very poorly and then one day just abandoned her. They told her to look in a window to see what she wanted, and when she turned around, they were gone.
No.
She was found and is safe, but, well, was safe. It's like
What?
100 years. It's 100 years ago, so I'm sure she's moved on.
Hey, you never know.
Looking into the background, police realize how serious Amelia's crimes are, and they think Arthur, so her son-in-law, might be an accomplice. Arthur Palmer married Marianne Dyer in May of 1894. And he's kind of in and out of jobs, and they adopt a child that they put their names on the birth certificate or the death certificate when she passes away from malnutrition. Her name is Anna Clara Palmer. They named her after Arthur's mother, but she died within a few weeks. Devastated by this death, they adopt a 14-month-old boy named Harold, for which they're paid £12.
Jeez, that's a lot of money.
Arthur is officially arrested as an accomplice because they don't believe he can not know what's going on if Amelia's been in and out of his house, like as living there. While this side of the investigation is going on, while they're looking into the background and the people in Amelia's life, they have the unfortunate job of trying to locate the parents of the children that they found in the river. They believe the first little girl found was Helena Fry. And it's not 100% clear how investigators made this conclusion, but Dr. Angela Buckley on her blog says the belief is that Mary Fry was a domestic servant who became pregnant by a local merchant and then put her daughter in Amelia's care on March 5th.
Okay.
Baby boy number 1 and baby who's a month old and baby boy number 2 who's 9 months old were not identified. But the two children found in the carpet bag were identified as 4-month-old Doris Marmon and 13-month-old Harry Simmons. Doris's mother is Evelina Marmon. She was 25 when she became pregnant. She was employed as a barmaid, and the owner of the bar was also her landlady. So this woman was kind enough not to fire Evelina.
Probably because she's a woman.
And once she gave birth, though, she was looking for other arrangements because she still had to work to support herself, and what kind of life could she offer her daughter? So she started looking for somebody to adopt her daughter. She answered an ad to place her daughter with a childless couple for the price of £10.
No.
She starts writing to a woman named Mrs. Harding, a.k.a. Amelia Dyer. They first corresponded on March 20th, and then they met on March 31st for the first time. Now, this is the letter Evelina received. I want you to hear this because think about Evelina's position. Think about what we're up against, right? She's pregnant. She's unmarried. She can't conceal it. Abortion is not a viable option. Adoption through any sort of regulatory system is not an option. She's trying to do what's best for her daughter. This is the letter she receives. Dear Madam, in reference to your letter as to the adoption of a child, I write to say should be glad to have a dear little baby girl, one I could bring up and call my own. First, I must tell you that we are plain, honest, homely people in fairly good circumstances. We live in our own house and have a good and comfortable home. We are out in the country, and sometimes I am alone a great deal. I have no children of my own, and a child with me will have a good home and a mother's care. We belong to the Church of England, and although I want to bring the child up as my own, I would not mind the mother coming to see it at any time.
Bullshit.
It is always a satisfaction to a mother to know that her child is going on all right. I only hope that we come to terms. I should be glad to have the baby as soon as possible. If I could come for her at once, I would not mind paying my fare one way. I could break my journey to Cheltenham at Gloucester, where I have a friend. I can give you good references and any questions you may care to ask. I shall be glad to answer. I'm yours respectfully, A. Harding.
No.
But think about Evelina's situation. Doesn't that
sounds great?
Perfect. Her daughter will grow up with a loving woman in the country. She can visit her anytime. She'll have, she'll be doted on. She'll have fresh air. She'll have plenty of care. It sounds ideal. Evelina packed a bag of extra diapers, clothing, dressed Doris in a light brown cloak to keep her warm, and created an agreement at Mrs. Harding's request that read, I, Anne Harding, of 45 Kensington Road, Oxford Road, Reading, in consideration of £10 paid to me by E. Marmon, agreed to adopt the child. and to bring up the same as my own without any further compensation over and above the 10 pounds.
No.
Now, Evelina heard from Mrs. Harding again, saying the two had arrived safely on April 2nd. Evelina returned additional letters on the 4th and the 7th asking for updates, but she never heard from Amelia
again.
The next word she received was from the police asking her to come identify her daughter's body on the 11th.
Can you imagine? No, you can't. You can't. This is horrific.
You can't imagine.
No, the guilt. Oh my God.
We can possibly start to imagine the guilt and the grief that she's feeling, but we can't even begin in our heads to think about the social stigma that is just weighing her down.
Yeah. We can't. We have no concept of it. Like, we can go wheel and deal as much as we want. You know what I wonder in this time period? Is the 2% number 4%?
You just really love that percentage. Because people are judging anybody who's found themselves in this position. The Little Falls Weekly writes, while no correct estimate of the number of babies she killed can yet be made, because the inhuman parents who bargained with the baby farmer are naturally anxious to conceal their guilt. That's the kind of...
Right, but that's why I asked about what church, because it's the Church of England leading like the country. So that also like the guilt that comes from, all of that and the expectations. I can't imagine living under that.
For her to come forward and admit to this.
Yeah.
It's actually unbelievable to me.
Yeah. Agreed.
That she did that. The other little boy, Harry, had been left in the care of a neighbor, Amelia Sargent. We'll call her Mrs. Sargent so we don't confuse the Amelias from here on out. So Harry's father had died before he was born, which means his mother was widowed.
Yeah.
She moved to another country to work as a domestic servant. When she left, she put Harry in Mrs. Sargent's care. He was only 4 weeks old, so because of this, Mrs. Sargent had to employ a wet nurse to take care of him.
Yeah.
Now, Mrs. Sargent never heard from the mother again and never received any money to help with Harry's care. Mrs. Sargent and her husband have 6 children of their own. So by the time, Harry's a year old, she thinks the best thing she can do while he's still young is to find Harry a home to adopt him, that he can be raised, because she can't afford to keep taking care of him without any assistance from the mother. Mrs. Sargent also wrote to Mrs. Harding, a.k.a. Amelia Dyer. Same as Evelina, except Mrs. Harding told her that her real name was actually Mrs. Thomas, because aliases were common because people didn't want anybody to know what they were doing.
Yeah.
There are absolutely no laws, no regulations. You can see how this very quickly becomes a vulnerable avenue to exploit people who are desperate. This is super dangerous. So the 2 women become crucial witnesses later on. And both Mrs. Sargent, I think, probably has a little less shade on her, because she was kind of left with Harry to start with than Evelina, but still, they still have to come forward.
Right.
During all this, Amelia is kept at Reading Prison, which I found this fascinating. It completely isolates the prisoners from each other. That was what the environment was at that time. They're forced to perform hard labor and allowed to go to chapel. But anytime they leave their cell, they have to wear a Scotch cap. Do you know what that is?
No.
It's essentially a leather mask with only eye holes, and it also
scary.
Covers your head.
I'm scared.
This ensures that you can't talk to anybody else or even really make eye contact.
Do you think that's where they got Hannibal Lecter's mask idea
That's
from?
kind of what it looks like, except it doesn't have the bars over the mouth.
That's what I'm imagining, so I'm scared.
No bars, just leather.
Still bad. Just like leather in general as over your face is kind of weird.
I don't wear a lot of leather anywhere.
Yeah, me either.
But yeah, imagine how hot it was. And to not be able to ever make eye contact with anyone. So she would have to get up at 6 a.m. for hard labor wearing this mask. She would get breaks for meals, and then they would have a small time for chapel or exercise. And then you had to be in your cell by 8 o'clock and lights out, no talking.
No books. You can't read.
No, it really messed with a lot of people.
Yeah.
Amelia is kept in the women's ward, which I don't feel bad for Amelia, to be clear. I'm just explaining the situations. I'm sure there are some people in there I would feel bad for. She's
like
not
the
one of them.
people who covered up their pregnancy.
Exactly.
2 years jail. Like, fuck right off.
Yeah, exactly. So Amelia is kept in the women's ward, which is 30 cells. and 13 by 7 feet. There's a hammock for sleeping, a single stool, a table, and a chamber pot. That's the situation. I hope it's messy.
How often does the chamber pot get taken out?
I hope it's a pool of chocolate. Let's just put it that way.
Ew! You just made that so much worse. It was a nice synchronized swimming area. No, it's not.
While this is going on, there are still children in Granny's care. Remember, Granny is helping her.
Oh, God. Granny.
One of those. Granny's all right, I think.
I don't know. But help get them out of there.
Granny's taking care of one boy in particular who will become important in this case, to 9-year-old Willie Thornton. Now, he's healthy and under their care.
Pretty old.
They wonder why. It could have been because he was older.
Yeah.
It could have been because,
himself a little bit.
For whatever reason, they just liked him. It also could have been a tactic. A lot of baby farmers would do this where they would
show off one of them and say, look, they're healthy.
Mm-hmm. They would have one or two healthy children who could talk and say how well they were treated as an advertisement, as a walking advertisement.
Totally get that.
So Granny, a.k.a. Jane Smith, is really interesting part of this story. She really did seem to truly care about the children, but how much did she know what Amelia was doing?
You have to if you're with her taking care of them. There's no way.
Well, here, she's a 74-year-old woman who had come from the workhouse. So her standard for good care has got to be abysmally low.
Yeah, that's a good point.
She's 74. Like you said earlier, she's basically 200 years old.
Yeah, correct.
That's unbelievable at this time. She talks well of Amelia at first, but eventually she starts to let slip some small details to the press. For instance, Amelia treated her cats better than any of them, including her.
What?
She would feed the cats better scraps than her or the children get.
That's fucked.
Yeah. She also said that at one point they got in a fight enough that she decided to go back to the workhouse. That's how bad it was.
Oh my God. And abandon the children?
And then she came back after a week.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I don't know what to make of Granny. She says that she's seen Amelia hit the children and be mean with them, but I don't know if she
also
knew
the time period they might do that.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's really not that unusual, sadly.
Yeah.
I don't know if she honestly knew that Amelia was taking the children away and murdering them. I wonder if she believed that they were being adopted.
Right.
I just don't feel like I can judge Granny's position because I can't even possibly imagine what her normal is.
Yeah, right.
So I'm not sure.
Okay.
Amelia and Arthur are both in jail, obviously in different sections. And because of this, Amelia seems very upset that Arthur, her son-in-law, is in jail. So she writes a letter to the chief constable saying that she was the only guilty party and her son-in-law and daughter are innocent.
Wow, that's so weird.
The letter reads, "Sir, will you kindly grant me the favor of presenting this to the magistrates on Saturday the 18th? I have made this statement out, for I may not have the opportunity then. I must relieve my mind. I do know and feel my days are numbered on this earth, but I do feel it is an awful thing drawing innocent people into trouble. I do know I shall have to answer before my Maker in heaven for the awful crime I have committed, but as God Almighty is my judge in heaven as on earth, neither my daughter, Mary Ann Palmer, or her husband, Arthur Palmer, I do most solemnly declare neither of them had anything at all to do with it. They never knew I contemplated doing such a wicked thing until it was too late. I am speaking the truth and nothing but the truth, as I hope to be forgiven. I myself and I alone must stand before my Maker in heaven to give an answer for it all. Amelia Dyer."
You're going to hell, bro.
You might be taking a detour. But this letter, for whatever reason, is kept under wraps for a long time. They don't tell anybody about it. The court wants to put her on trial because essentially she's just confessed.
Yeah, she did. Completely.
Yeah. So the inquests continue, and the inquest is to decide if there should be an official trial. They're looking for evidence that there was a murder for the unknown child thought to be Helena Fry, Doris Marmont, and then eventually Harry Simmons will also be added to this. And Arthur is charged as an accessory for these.
Okay.
Now, at the inquest, the heartbroken Evelina Marmont, who identifies all of the belongings because the light brown coat she dressed Doris in, Arthur and Marianne's child was wearing it. She'd given it to them. She identifies Amelia as Mrs. Harding. She identifies the clothes. She tells the same story of how they met, the letter and the advertisement. And she was planning on visiting Doris in the country, all of this stuff. Amelia had told her there was a beautiful orchard right outside their door and she could come visit anytime. Mrs. Sargent also IDs Amelia as the woman who took Harry, as well as his clothes. And she broke down on the stand when they showed Harry's clothes.
I'm sure.
While this inquest is going on, another infant is discovered in the river.
No.
In the same manner as all the others.
No.
A female about 1 year old. Now, this time, Granny Smith decides to help the police.
Good.
I mean, I don't know that she wasn't not deciding. I just think
did
she
you
knew.
just realize her
I
name
know.
is Granny Smith?
I know. I just realized that. And I was like, oh, that's a really bad look for apples. That's what they call her. We'll just call her Granny.
She's a bad apple. Get it?
She might. I don't know. I don't know. Anyway.
There's no way.
You don't think Granny didn't know?
Yeah, I don't.
Well, here's what Granny says happened. She believed the child to be a 5-month-old named Isaacs. That's what they called her, and they called her Little Ikey. Little Ikey stayed with them for a few months, and one day Amelia took her, and Granny was devastated and ran down the road chasing her to say goodbye to her, and Amelia told her she was being adopted.
No.
I mean, maybe Granny believed it. I don't
know.
This also was around the time that Little Ikey started to teeth, which means she was fussy.
Yep.
And Granny had seen Amelia hit the child very hard one day after these crying fits.
No, they're just little.
Amelia left and came back saying the child was now with her new parents.
Oh, God.
That's what I'm saying. Does Granny know or not? I don't know.
She knows there is abuse of some sort. She maybe doesn't know about the murders.
In addition to continuing to search the river, police also find 20 packages of baby clothes at local pawn shops that Amelia had sold. And police find 15 pawn tickets in her house.
Oh, my God.
She was taking everything she could.
Despicable.
Like Evelina, when she handed Doris off, she had a full bag packed for her daughter to make sure she was okay. It was also thought that Amelia was further blackmailing the women who had used her services once they found themselves in a better position. So they'd get married and then she'd blackmail them saying that she was going to reveal their secret if they didn't pay up.
Oh,
evil,
evil, wicked woman.
Yeah, you're not getting, this is such an evil depiction. Granny also testifies in the inquest. She says, regarding Helena Fry, she said Amelia left the house that morning with a parcel and then returned without it. But when she returned, she went to the kitchen and scrubbed the cupboard where the parcel had been kept because the smell was overpowering.
Stop. I can't do this. No.
Willie, the young 9-year-old, testified to the same story. There's also a witness who saw Amelia on the bridge that morning with a brown parcel. He looked back, worried that she might jump because she kind of climbed up. And she had gotten down, but she no longer had the parcel.
She's so fucking sick.
There are several witnesses who came forward having seen Amelia with children or the carpet bag standing over a bridge. Now, don't forget the police are searching for more victims and more children who may have been placed. Maybe some of them actually were adopted.
Yeah.
On April 30th, they find another parcel on the shore of the river, a male child of 9 months. Again, the same string was found in the package. On May 1st, a woman by the name of Elizabeth Goulding comes forward. She worked as a domestic servant and had given birth on November 20th of 1894 to a child she named Francis Jesse. The father was married, and because of this, adoption was what they chose to do. Elizabeth signed a contract with Mary Ann Palmer and gave her child to Mary Ann, so Amelia's daughter.
Yeah.
Letters are going back and forth this whole time stating how well the child is doing, and Elizabeth planned to visit, but then her letters stopped being returned. Mary Ann says she did take the child from Elizabeth as agreed upon and had then adopted it to a Miss Robb in Birmingham. The court says, okay, well, just show us the child then. Problem solved, right? They can't seem to find the child. And the problem is that they can't prove that the child they found is in fact Francis Jesse.
Right.
There's no way for them to do this at this point. The jury believes Mary Ann is lying about Francis Jesse, so they charge her as an accessory to that child's murder and charge Amelia with this child's murder.
Okay.
The following day after this all busts wide open, because Amelia does not want anything bad to happen to her daughter, the following day in court, the letter Amelia had written taking full blame is finally read for the first time. The court had been sitting on it. They finally decided to read it. Arthur Palmer is acquitted for being an accessory.
Just by a fucking letter?
Yeah, because Amelia had taken full blame. But before he even leaves the courtroom, Arthur is arrested for his treatment of the 4-year-old I mentioned before. Her name is Queenie Baker, which is the cutest name.
Oh,
The little girl he had abandoned, he's arrested for that.
good.
Marianne has to recount, she has to testify too on the other charges. So she has to recount the night Harry Simmons disappeared in court, and it is disgusting. Amelia came to her house, gave her clothes, like Doris's coat, and for her own adopted son. And then she had her carpet bag, which had a ham in it. And she also had the child, Harry. Harry started to fuss. Marianne asked her mother to keep him quiet, and Amelia shook him very hard.
No.
Marianne then fed him a piece of bread. And when she went to put her son to sleep, Amelia said she would do the same with Harry. When Marianne came back down, she saw Harry on the couch and her mother's shawl was draped over him, and Amelia said he was asleep. Marianne bent over to check, and Amelia pushed her away. Then all of the adults in the house decide to go for a walk, which
What?
is weird. But they go for a walk, they leave the children sleeping, and Amelia is insistent that the front room where the carpet bag and Harry are remain locked, which is unusual apparently. When they return, Marianne offers to make Harry a bottle more than once, and Amelia says if he wants one, I'll do it. The next morning when they wake up, Harry is gone, and Amelia says, don't worry about him. And then she asks if they have any spare bricks in the house.
What?
Then she goes to leave. Marianne notices that the carpet bag is full,
Yeah.
much more than when she arrived, and she's not able to close it. She tells her it's because they're storing linens. She's bringing some linens back. But Marianne states that she asked her mother, what will the neighbors think who saw you come with a baby and leave without one? Which to me means Marianne freaking knew what was happening.
Yes. Marianne's not innocent.
Get out. What do you think? Like she just had a quick adoption down at the train station?
Right.
After a child who hadn't moved for 15
Yeah.
hours was laying on a couch? Stop it. You knew. Amelia's official trial starts on May 21st, 1896. All of the same, it's basically the inquest on repeat, right? You've got Doris's mother. You have Mrs. Sargent, who took care of Harry. Marianne Palmer has to testify again and speak to her mother's mental health, stating she was unwell and went through periods of delusions, and she often thought Marianne was going to murder her. Like that's Amelia's delusion, was that Marianne was going to murder her and she had to calm her mother down. But there's so much evidence against Amelia.
Yeah.
The carpet bag she placed Harry and Doris in, that belonged to the 9-year-old Willie Thornton, and he said it did. He was like, yeah, that's mine. A witness saw her carrying that same bag on a bridge near where the bodies were found.
Yeah. Small towns. Even in the big towns are small.
Yeah, and he said it was visibly hard for this woman to carry this.
Oh, sure.
Bricks found in the packages were the same ones at the houses that she lived in. The same murder weapon was in most of these packages, the dressmaker's tape. The women who came forward and identified, Evelina and Mrs. Sargent are identifying their children, are identifying the letters, are identifying their child's clothes.
God.
Several doctors testify and speak to her sanity. So this is a crazy amount of doctors. I wrote them all down because I couldn't believe it. Dr. Logan, that's the one who was attacked or tried to be attacked by the fire poker because the birds told her to do it.
Yep. Okay.
He was like, here's my interaction with her, if you guys care. Dr. Firth, he was an attending physician at the hospital where she was brought after one of her attempts to self-harm. He reported that she was melancholy but not delusional. Dr. Eden asked to see her at fish ponds. He said she was in a bellicose spirit, which meant aggressive. And he felt that she was mentally ill and he sent her to an asylum. Dr. Winslow examined her after she was arrested, and he felt she was of unsound mind and delusional and that she was not faking. He called it not shamming. She reported she was depressed, had visions of her mother, who was dead, regularly, and had no recollection of committing any crimes, but could remember being sent to the asylum and being mistreated there.
Huh.
The doctor argues that it's normal for anyone with melancholy to remember the long term, but not the short term, especially for a woman of her advanced age. She's 57, so that's kind of a slam to modern day, but still.
Modern day, she'd be 85.
Granny is, that's what I'm saying.
Granny's 100.
How is Granny even?
No, seriously.
It's crazy.
I wonder, what is her past? Like, you think, especially if you grow up poor,
In the
how
workhouse.
fuck
How do you make it? Yeah, I can't. Dr. Scott saw her during the trial. As the trial was going on, he examined her, and he believes her to be sane. So it's just like they just keep
Yeah.
going back and forth, back and forth.
Uh-huh.
Dr. Savage saw her at the hospital. He said she was not mentally unsound, which is like a little bit of a hedge, Dr. Savage. And during the cross-examination, Dr. Savage reports, I asked her if she knew why she was in the jail. She said yes. Do you know the nature of the crime you are accused of? She said yes. Can you explain it in any way? No, I know nothing about it. I know I'm accused of this, but if I did this or them, I must have been mad when I did them because I'm so fond of children.
Fuck off.
Yeah.
I hate her.
Yeah. She was found guilty in under 5 minutes and sentenced to death.
Good.
Before her execution date, changes to the laws were made to help protect children in this situation. The Infant Protection Act required registration of caregivers, that weren't their own children, as well as recording of the deaths within 24 hours. That's still not cutting it because you can just not do it.
Yeah.
And then finally in 1908, laws were created around foster parents and allowed authorities to intervene when needed.
Okay.
Now, Amelia Dyer was put to death June 10th, 1896. Public executions had come to an end, so there was no mob to witness it, but there was a crowd outside cheering.
Wow.
When asked if she had any final words, she said, "No, sir, I have nothing to say."
How'd she die?
Hanging. Now, what happened to all the people in this case? Willie Thornton was returned to his mother.
Yay.
Granny went back to the workhouse.
Oh my God.
And I can't imagine she lived much longer. I mean, who
No.
knows? Maybe she was 98. I don't
Maybe
know.
she's still alive.
Yeah, she might be, honestly. Maybe she opened up an orchard and she is Granny Smith.
Oh my God.
She might be immortal. Mary Ann Palmer had her own trial after her mother's execution. It started on June 18th, 1896, but was eventually dismissed because they just could not prove that those children were the same.
Come on.
I know.
She was clearly involved.
I know.
Like, even if she didn't do it, she was like a accessory. Like, she's watching all of these kids get taken.
Yeah. In 1898, Arthur and Mary Ann were charged again. This time they abandoned an infant. They'd advertised to adopt in the paper. Baby was found alive, thank God. But they just left him.
Yeah, they're learning from her mom.
They went to prison, 2 years hard labor, and nobody knows what happened to him after that. It's not enough. Sadly, Amelia Dyer is not the only person treating children like this. She simply was the one who got caught and probably the worst. Just the absolute worst. In the summer of 1902, the papers reported the discovery of skeletal remains at a home in Fish Ponds. In the garden, 5 children were found, ranging from ages 1 through 6, and Amelia had lived there for 1 year.
Oh, God.
So in the last few months before her arrest, Amelia Dyer was thought to have at least 20 children in her care, but only 4 were confirmed as living.
Jesus Christ.
So no one will ever know how many children died at her hands.
I mean, a lot.
I know, but
sick.
The children we do know are a huge part of this motivation to change the laws that came after them to help the children that came after them.
Yeah.
Elizabeth Thomas, who was 6 weeks, Evelyn Townsend, 8 months, Alfred John Channing, May Walters, Little Ike, Frances Jesse, Ina Clara Palmer, Helena Fry, Doris Marmon, and Harry Simmons. Those are the ones we know. Thoughts?
Evil.
Yeah.
Awful.
And they said that there's different folklore, like, she's haunting around and all that stuff. But they said that at first she would just let the children waste away. And then she started actively murdering them.
Because it wasn't fast enough.
I think maybe, but also maybe I think part of her might have enjoyed it.
Oh, God, I can't wrap my head around it.
Yeah. And there's now she never truly, like, she wrote that letter that kind of said she did it.
Yeah.
But then she continuously said she couldn't remember ever doing it. But there are some articles out there that say she actually said, "You'll know which ones are mine because of the tape." I'm paraphrasing. Yeah, so I don't know. Like, obviously she's not right because but you have to like, is she a Jolly Jane or is she a Martha Needle? I think she's 100% a Jolly Jane. Like,
Oh,
she
yeah, she's
knew
not a
what
Martha
she was
Needle.
doing. She was
Yeah.
doing it for money.
She did
She
it all the
didn't care.
time.
Yeah.
She wasn't
And
desperate.
no. She had so much money from this baby
Yeah.
farming operation, and all of it went to her defense.
God.
Gross.
It's just like totally evil.
Yeah.
Sick person.
This is, it's just, all of it is so disgusting. Every single part of it. Even Marianne and Arthur telling a 4-year-old to look in a window and then jetting.
Yeah, no, I mean, she's awful too.
Disgusting.
There's no
They're
doubt.
disgusting.
She picked up her mom's behavior. There's absolutely no doubt.
Yeah. But think about, like, I don't really care about Amelia at all, but think about the mothers in this situation.
That's what I
When
was
this
thinking
story
about.
broke,
Oh,
how
God.
many mothers thought, "Oh my God, that's the woman I gave my child to,"
Yeah,
and
your heart would fall on the floor.
had to relive that grief
Yeah.
all over again because
and 10 times worse.
10 times worse because in your head you probably had a picture of that was sad, but they're probably with
they're
somebody
in a good life.
You're
blah, blah,
picturing
blah.
them that
just
that
shatters
delusion
it.
is shattered for you, and now you realize what your child probably went through. And there are some people who say that there were parents, they say parents, but they really mean mothers, who were looking for baby farmers to murder their child for them so they didn't have to do it. Maybe there were some mothers who knew what was going to happen, but I think more often than not, you're getting people like Evelina, who truly think they're doing the best thing they can for their child, because being in a workhouse is not.
No.
I mean, ask Granny. It's not great.
No.
It's not great. They are trying to do something better for their child, and they have this, like you said, this ideal image of their child growing up in a farm in the country with parents who love him or her, and then they would find this out and they would know that that's not what happened. I don't even know how often she actually sold children. It felt like she probably didn't, because there could have been an element too of her selling children to either people who wanted children or people who wanted them for disgusting reasons. I don't think she really did that. I think she just
killed them.
She started only taking children for a flat fee because that was the best for her financially. Yeah.
Because she wouldn't need continued payments.
Yeah, she doesn't need, like Willie, he might have stayed alive because he was a weekly.
Terrible.
Yeah, this is a real embodiment of evil.
Truly. It's like a next step from Georgia Tann.
Yeah.
Who at least
it really is similar.
Alive.
It's similar to Georgia Tann, but at least some of those children actually were adopted. Yeah. Wait till you see her too. She's terrifying.
Oh God, I'm sure. I mean, like, something does that to you, where you like your eyes change.
It's not right. Ugh, what are your last words?
I have a few. First, the author. I just love that she's an expert on Victorian police. Like,
I know.
I just love when people get so into like one topic, and so good for you. That's so fucking cool.
And she's really trying to find more names of the victims.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
2, shows why background checks are so important, and glad they've become a thing.
Yeah.
I had a 3rd one, and my brain has hidden it from me, so we'll never know.
I bet it will come back out. Just playing hide and seek.
Yeah.
Yeah, background checks weren't really a thing. Think about a background check in that day and age, though. I mean, how easy is it to just write your own background check?
Right. Right. What is it? I mean, like, but even if the parent, the French last name woman, Evelina, think if she went and visited her.
Right. If she went to the house.
Yes.
Yeah. Which I'm sure she beat herself up for. But here's the thing.
I'm not saying it's her fault. I'm saying it's not a practice yet. I'm saying that's why background checks are so important. And like those things are so important. Home checks, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
these
totally.
days.
Yeah. Because these women are still domestic servants who work 6-7 days a week.
Oh,
You can't
totally.
can't
And
just
then
be like,
they're
I'm
not
gonna
even
just
think about it. Like, yeah, it's not even a concept.
I'm just gonna shoot over to somebody's house and check it out for my
Right.
baby
Let's
that
go
you
to the
don't
countryside.
that you
Like, yeah,
don't know
right.
about because I kept
Yeah.
it a secret and I don't want to be in jail for 2 years. So I'll be right back.
Yeah, it's not doable. But like, yeah. Oh, third, I remembered it. It's a miracle.
I knew you would.
Social services are so important. And a big thing I'm taking away from this case is there's just a lack of services for unwed mothers. And like, imagine if there were more services for them, programs to help them, we would see so much less death and like evil behavior because they had support.
Yeah, they had just cut all of those services at the same time. They were like, hey, dads don't need to do anything.
Yeah.
And that's why this was happening.
Exactly. Like it's important and it matters and it helps.
And it's just icky all around. I don't think
It's
I truly can't put myself fully in the mother's position because
no, we can't.
These are women who probably had previously seen children starve to death because they couldn't give them enough food. Like, that's the kind of world they're living in.
Yeah.
Some of them.
It's a dark, dark world.
You can't wrap your head around that.
Yeah, we can't.
We can't living here in the U.S. as we are.
No, we can't.
Like and nobody should have to. It's just
it's really awful. And then just the whole men dynamic makes me want to strangle them instead.
Yeah, just jetting. Bye.
Fuck you.
Yeah. Ugh, man.
So the double slide. I mean, it still lives on today, but man, fuck them.
Well, now, I mean, who's the scientist who came up with paternity tests? Because you've done Maury Povich and women a service. Thank you.
Truth.
All right. Well, yeah, that is it. Who should listen?
Social workers. You do a great job and really, really need you. And we need the good ones. Policemen, doctors, judges, and people who go on juries, which is everybody.
Yeah, the policemen really took this down quick.
Yeah, I was a little surprised that the police were looking into this so much. I wonder if a rich person somehow had, I don't know, like it's weird.
I didn't give you the stats, but they found a lot of babies.
Okay.
I think they thought, I mean, it's a baby. Everybody thinks that's not right.
Yeah.
I think they were very concerned. I mean, nobody wanted these baby farming operations going.
Yeah.
And she also put her frickin' name on the package. I mean.
Yeah, that was something.
That helps, you know?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you so much for listening. You can find us on all of the platforms at
Tea Time Crimes.
You can email us at
teatimecrimes@gmail.com. I look like a toad right now.
Gosh, you kind of do. That's a really big sweater.
It is. Can you take a picture of me?
I'd love to. I'd love for this photo shoot to happen. Hold on one second.
Oh, I totally look like a toad. It's kind of cute.
All right. Let's get
ready for that, listeners.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.
Ta-ta. Oh, there are no teats this episode.
You know what's funny? In the Bailey Online court records, they say titty. They mean like a baby rubber nipple.
Oh.
But they kept saying titty over and over, and I was like, what is this? What world have I stumbled into? I was like, why can't I get away from this word? And two, why are we calling it this?